came into the office today and I ended up having to um, set up in my office. I've done webinars from my office a few times, and everybody always loves when they get to see this background because it's a real window.
Oh, wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's webinar. Today with me, I have Mike Berry from Broadcom VMware to talk about VMware Bring Your Own Licensing with VMware Cloud Foundation. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thank you, AJ.
Mike, can you give us a little background on yourself and Broadcom and kind of where you are now in the organization?
Sure. So this coming August will be 18 years between the two organizations for tenure, that is. And it's been an incredible journey, right? We've had a lot of twists and turns along the way, and we're probably in the most exciting time that we've ever been. So my current role right now is I'm the VP of the East for the corporate segment, and corporate being defined as all of Canada, New England down to Florida, and as far central as about Chicago. Within that group, we have about 100 sellers that report into 10 leaders, and we're covering about 1,400 accounts.
I mean, it's a real testament to where VMware has been for the last 15 years, is that that growth has happened and breaking up in all the regions, and even inside of those regions and even inside of a segment, there's still a significant number of customers there. And I think we have seen a lot of customers who are committed to VMware and they've purchased Cloud Foundation, but now what do they do? Right? A lot of the last, I'd say 2 years was, hey, what am I going to do when my ELA or my renewal is up? Now that they've renewed, how do we maximize the value we're going to talk a lot today about how Broadcom and Expedient are working together to help accelerate getting the most value out of that VCF licensing. So can you tell us more about why we're joining forces and how we're joining forces to do this and kind of that value that we bring together?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll take a step back and just go back 18 months when the whole acquisition initially closed. And we had an initiative out there that was really twofold. The first was to get our customers to migrate from perpetual platform to subscription, which quite honestly, we were late to the game, right? So that was the first piece that we had to accomplish. The second part was to get our customers to pivot to a platform we called vCloud Foundation, which essentially allows our customers to go build private cloud through a whole robust set of products. And they do it in a more operationally efficient way. And it's just a better cloud experience. The challenge, to tie back to your question, is, and by the way, it's been very successful. So when you think about what we've done, we're over 70% converting within about a year and a half. It's exceeded our expectations. It's going faster than we expected. But of course, as you can imagine, there's been some challenges. And I want to hit on those for a moment, because I think our whole basis for our relationship is where we solve those problems, right? So the challenges that we faced was really twofold. The first was customers really liked where we were going. They liked our roadmap. In many cases, they said it meshed with where they wanted to go, but the timing wasn't great. Hey, this is happening quicker than I anticipated. The second part was, I like VCF. I think you've included, for the most part, the right products, but I don't need all of them. I don't need all the products right away. And so we scratched our head and said, hey, those are two fair objections, right? When we look at it, but we thought through it and we started to have some experiences. We didn't wait. We dove right in. And we realized pretty early on, AJ, that the best way to experience value through VCF is through utilization, right? The challenge we have in our space, as you well know, is that customers in the corporate space are resource challenged. They don't have huge IT departments for the most part. This isn't, the big banks on Wall Street and some of the big pharmaceutical companies. These are mid-sized companies that do well at their craft, but they're fairly limited with their resources. And so it's a great opportunity for us to partner with an Expedient who has the resources and the expertise and the white glove service, right? That all the things that customers are looking for when they want to experience value, but don't know how to get there.
So what is that value that the full stack VCF is bringing in? Because as you mentioned, there's a lot in there. And I would say that the vast majority of your customer base really just had vSphere. And that's really all they wanted. They were like, cool, I have a thing. It runs my VMs. It does it well. It does all my failover. Didn't always feel like it made sense to them. I think a lot of that had to do with, as you mentioned, the resource challenges and honestly, the lack of time of how do I figure all these things out? How do I integrate these into my environment? So can you tell us a little bit more about that value that it's being that it's bringing.
Yeah. And in a customer's defense, our go-to-market wasn't great, right? We had this very disparate approach to, hey, you bought what you needed at the time, and it was very sort of disjointed and distributed, right? So every customer had was on a different level of the journey, and it made it very difficult to tell a story. Now putting it all together, you talk about your basic hypervisor, which is, table stakes to be in virtualization, but then you talk about virtualized storage, right? What vSAN is doing and how vSAN is playing a massive role in helping customers even displace existing storage vendors. You look at the analytics around ARIA and all the things that ARIA is doing to analyze the business. And then the network and security business has never been, more relevant than it is right now. All of these are, fit under and tuck under the umbrella of VCF. And really the value, back to your original question, is tying it together on one common platform, not having to use a bunch of different vendors to go figure out how this story plays out.
And I think that's where we really, came into this. It's a lot of what we've been offering from our enterprise cloud space has been the VCF stack, right? vSAN, NSX, ESXi, vCenter. But now we're able to add in other pieces of this puzzle. So now with our private cloud, we're able to deploy VCF as a service, and we're able to deploy the ARIA suite and have the additional capabilities on top of that. But that also means that from our standpoint, as a service provider, I can say that we're able to help customers get on board faster and also help them with a lot of the challenges that we see, especially around timelines, right? You mentioned earlier that, there's a big struggle that they've seen in the last 18 months of we were on this path, but the timing didn't line up for the licensing piece. Well, now that licensing piece is there, but the hardware isn't, right? So server support's going away. How do I ensure that I have that? How do I ensure that I have all of my workloads in the right place, but also not put myself at risk of hardware failure because we want to get out of this data center, or we want to move to new hardware? And how do we alleviate those costs? I think that's a big, big shift for a lot of organizations, that a lot of what we do helps. We have our 100% availability SLA, almost said LSA, SLA, on our platform across 14 data centers in the US. So we can pick a location, land the workload there to where it needs to be to match a customer's requirements. And I think that's really where we put all this together and then manage that hardware and help co-manage the software. So even as easy as VCF is, we can help make sure that everything is patched, everything is taken care of, and allow customers to focus on the innovations to put on top of that, how they want to deploy their applications, how they want to support their business versus how do I patch ESXi for the 720th time.
Yeah, and what you're really doing, AJ, is you're optimizing the value of VCF. You're not using 30, 40, 50% of it. You're giving your customers an opportunity to use the full stack, and you're helping them do it.
And a lot of that value comes in because we deliver it all the time, right? As a service provider, we're helping to bring that hardware in, we're bringing in that software, but we know how to do deployments over and over and over again. It's our whole business, right? So how do we ensure that we're making everyone able to land in a matter of weeks versus a matter of months of acquiring hardware and deploying the software and getting things up and running? It's easier to go in through a service provider. We actually had a BYOL customer. So talking about the bringing your own license, this was actually something that we as the service provider space had been asking about for, 10 years, something like that. A lot of customers would want to leave their data center. We looked like a really great place for them to land, but our licensing and their licensing didn't match. You had per socket licensing on-prem, you had per gig of RAM pricing, in our environments. And so there was never really a good how many gigs of RAM equals one socket type of math that everybody was excited about. And so we were able, as part of this VCF transition, where customers are per core, we're per core. So now we can start to do transitions. And we actually had a customer in the healthcare space who did BYOL, and they brought VCF licensing was purchased through our friends at Broadcom and VMware, but they were able to land on us. So they were looking to turn down this hardware, but they had this renewal and they wanted to kind of do a cloud transition all at the same time. So Broadcom VMware helped with the licensing piece of the puzzle. We helped with the actual compute and deployment part of the puzzle. And we were able to bring a client in and get them to where they wanted to be with far less effort than they would have had they gone and tried to do all of this themselves. We actually did this within 45 days of contract signing. So that is a wildly shorter time frame than what most organizations go through with their migrations. And I think that's really where that value proposition lands.
Yeah, no question. It's a great story, a great example of where you bring the value. The other thing I'll say that Expedient's done different than many of your peers or your competitors is you picked a lane early, right? There was no confusion with where the value was. It's not like you were ever dabbling in reselling. You wanted to be that managed service provider, and you made it clear. And I can't tell you how refreshing that is for us, right? Because we know now exactly what your role is, what our role is, and they actually work very well together. There is no conflict. You embrace bring your own license, and you are looking to be a managed service provider and be the best, and not dabble between reselling and managed service.
Yeah, I recall those early days of like everybody asking, "Hey, can you get us a better price on licensing or this and that?" I'm like, what value are we bringing out of this? We're a service provider. Like we did not want to sell licensing. We did not want to be in that business because that's not our lane, right? It's barely in the same pool. So we wanted to be very consistent about our messaging and very consistent about where we provide value, because there's a million other companies out there that will sell licensing, that their whole value is providing access to licensing and cost optimization, those things. That's not us. So let them do what they're good at. Let us do what we're good at. And then we'll all meet together in the middle and have a good time.
And I think that's how we've gotten to where we are.
Yeah. And I think it's been really beneficial to see this. And we've had a lot of really fruitful conversations with folks at Broadcom and VMware, even about the challenges that we've had on our side in terms of, hey, this is what we're seeing. How can we do this better? And Broadcom has responded. In the past, it's been like chasing around, like, can we do this? Can we do that? Can we do this? And now we have the really great relationships that we have where we can say, hey, is this a thing that we can try to offer? And the answer is usually yes. Because you guys want to do business. You guys want to sell more things. And if we can be the provider of those services, absolutely. So things like the live recovery was something that early on was not part of that, but we've been able to bring that in. So these are different things that are not aligned in the past, but now are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes a company like yours to tie it together. Right. It's just not easy for a customer. It's a full-time job, right, to do that. So that's great.
And a lot of this also comes back to the recognition that we've gotten from Broadcom, right? So
yeah, in fact, I won't make you say it because I know you're too humble to say it. But what a great award that you just got, right? So I think it was May. We just announced that you're the VCF as a Service CSP Partner of the Year. So congratulations to everybody at Expedient. It's not something to take lightly. That is a very prestigious award. I think you're one of three pinnacle partners that received any award in the whole group of what started out as dozens and dozens and now is down to a smaller group. So congratulations. It's great. It's great to see.
Thank you. And on behalf of VMware, we humbly accept. This is something that is a recognition of not just, I think, the last year's work, but I think a lot of the work that we've done over the last 15 years around being a VMware as a service provider and making sure that we're staying up with the latest and greatest from one of our key partners, which is Broadcom.
And in this transition, AJ, we haven't made it super easy, right? I think we're there now. I think the road is more smooth. But there was a while that, you guys were very patient. You knew what you wanted to do. We didn't know what we needed from you. And you stayed the course and it came around.
Yeah, and that is something that we, as somebody who had to help our sales team understand what changes were happening, our organization understand what changes were happening. There was a lot of shifts, and the shifts have much much more dramatically settled down than we had about a year ago. And I think this is really where we can start to have the conversation with you guys about customers and how they can benefit from fully leveraging VCF. And what have you seen in the field so far? And what would it be like for more customers if they had access to an easy button to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's really three types of customers, right? There's more than that, but the three that we see most commonly, it's the ones that don't have the resources. So it just is a perfect use case for a quality CSP like Expedient. The second one is having to get out of a data center and not having any alternative. That's a panic situation for a customer, right? And there aren't a lot of turnkey solutions that you can just say, hey, we'll just go figure it out. No, you need to, there's no more critical inflection point than having to exit a data center on a timeline and not knowing what succession looks like. That's the second piece. The third piece is, a lot of customers now are starting to realize that the public cloud wasn't maybe the best choice, right? It's costly, it's complex, and there are some compliance challenges with it. And if you want to exit, a big hyperscaler, you need a destination, right? And you need an alternative that makes sense where you can keep things, moving. And so those are the three types of customers that we see most often when we think CSP. We think about those scenarios because, when you think about what Expedient can do, it's full-blown outsourcing, right? Yes, you have to be committed to it. And yes, there's some involvement, but at the end of the day, you're with a set of experts that, they know what they're doing, right? So if you want it to be foolproof, that's the best route to go.
And a lot of that is accelerated by the bring your own license story, right? A lot of organizations, when they do those renewals, that maybe they did do a big push into a public cloud space. They're doing that renewal now. They're moving over to Cloud Foundation and saying, okay, well, can we do the same cloud story that we had in a hyperscaler, right? This is where I want to deploy to. This is how my platforms work. This is my infrastructure as code. All of the things that they want to do today, they are able to bring that into the VCF stack. And we can help accelerate that by saying, instead of you going out and building a whole bunch of hardware to try and get that value quickly, instead of just building a simple vSphere stack and figuring it out from there, let's actually take advantage of all the toys you have in the toy box, right? You have a lot there. So let's take advantage of that, get the most value out of it. And I think that's where we just kind of help accelerate that whole story.
Yeah, and another opportunity for us together that I mentioned earlier, but I'll mention again, is that customer's ability to displace existing technologies they no longer need to renew because they've stood up full stack VCF. I mean, that is a underrated, not so often talked about opportunity that will help subsidize, if not pay for, VCF.
Yeah, and that you mentioned that data center exit story. One of the things that we are always looking to do is help expand our footprint. We have had a program over the last few years where we are looking to buy data centers, especially keep people who are in a data center now where the maintenance of it has gotten to the point where it's really expensive and not necessarily seeming like it's a good business expense to update the HVAC and update the power and generators and batteries and UPSs and biometric security and all the things you need to have now to be a compliant data center that we do all the time in ours. Go see our co-location webinar where you can see all of the wonderful features of ours. But how do we actually help customers get to that point without having to really put in the huge investment? And that's where we come in and buy the data center, and a customer becomes they become a colo customer in their own data center. So they didn't have to move anything. And then we're able to expand our footprint into that area. And you now have direct access to those services, right? We start landing private clouds in that data center. You own the VMware licensing, and we can bring that over to our private cloud. And now you have a managed VMware cloud solution, and you didn't even have to leave your own four walls. So that's a huge differentiator there. And it allows you as an organization to think much more strategically versus just, here's my licenses and okay, now what do I do with them? It's thinking much more holistically about where you want to be as an organization.
Yeah, and you have vast experience there, right? You have a customer base, I think it's 800 plus customers that fit into that colo use case, right? We have a bunch of customers that perfect fit. And I don't think that's a strength of every CSP by a long shot. I think it's a niche. It's a niche business for sure.
Yeah, we call our co-location, I call it the secret ingredient. It's the secret sauce. It's the like little extra thing that we do that helps bring everything together, because not everybody is all the way virtualized. I'm sorry for my friends at Broadcom and VMware who are hearing this for the first time. Not everybody is 100% virtualized. They have these physical database servers, or they have this storage array, and none of these investments line up ever. Right? They are purchased when they are needed. And so trying to align all of the different sort of states and when is the best time to exit, there is no best time. So how can you get as much flexibility as possible? This is where if you're exiting a data center, moving into a colo with your existing stuff is there, but then being able to leverage Expedient service portability, where you're turning down things that are in colo because you're turning things up in our cloud side or our backups or our DR. And you now have the ability to kind of blend those costs and do it in a simpler and smoother way. And you're leveraging a partner that you already trust, right? So it's, again, just like the VCF story, it's taking advantage of more of the value of what Expedient's offering, just like you're taking more advantage of what Broadcom and VMware have been offering with the Cloud Foundation suite.
And as you're saying that, I'm thinking about a fourth use case that comes up quite often where customers don't have a solution is around DR, right? Mm-hmm. DR can be very arduous to maintain. It's difficult to maintain. Most customers don't have a stable solution for DR. And then all of a sudden it happens, right? And they're stuck. And they realize that the panic and the massive impact it can have, where all that's alleviated by going to an Expedient.
And that's where our status as a service provider can also be helpful in terms of being able to be more flexible around licensing usage, right? So what we can do as a service provider is, if you're doing this all yourself in your data center, that licensing usage is done you have to license every core that's active all the time. Right? You are paying for them every single month. And that can be very expensive, especially when you're talking about a platform in an area that you hope to never, ever use. Right. This is where we as Expedient can come in and provide the larger solution around disaster recovery as a service, where you're paying for a small pilot light cluster and then being able to turn up more resources and pay for the usage at time of need versus all the time. And that can be a massive cost savings for a lot of organizations, and where a lot of our customers start with us. They start with DR and then they go, oh, hey, the DR stuff was really great and we don't want to do this prod stuff anymore. They're really great at DR. Can they do prod too? And that's where we can really amplify it and take it to the next level.
The other thing that we haven't mentioned is that, customers have customers that are looking to be reassured that their data is safe, right? Especially in healthcare. And I think that's no better way to do that than to have a stable solution in place that's proven, that you can report back to your customers to say, we're covered, right? We're covered around all governance.
And not only that, but you're not just covering it by having your stuff in a second place. Right. You have your workloads protected by a service with people who do DR testing and recoveries all the time. In fact, we did, I think it was somewhere between 175 and 200 tests for our customers alone last year. And we only had one fail. And it was because of a database server that came up too fast. Yeah. Right. So these are the challenges that we run into that we've solved over and over again for the last 20 years. So let us be able to help you with our expertise and provide that larger level of value. So if you're a healthcare customer and you say, hey, I need to make sure that if my stuff goes down, that I can bring it up on your side successfully, we absolutely can help with that. And it's not just the technology, it's the people angle as well. And when we work with our engineers, they're fantastic. Shout out to our entire support and delivery organizations on making sure that our clients are up, running, and happy. And when they have a problem, we go and take care of it. This is a huge differentiator for us in terms of our testing and work with our clients, because a lot of our clients, they'll do a DR test maybe once a year, and it's a very big planned effort. And a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, but every time I've ever had to deal with some sort of disaster, I didn't get to plan it. And so when we are sitting down and going through this, we're trying to make sure that it will work every time, because we will never, ever get the chance to plan it up front. So being able to know that it's going to work every time, being able to do the testing that we do is really a huge value. And I think this is where we see the biggest value of all. I think we've talked about some really great use cases here. So how do we help customers along this path, Mike?
So I think it starts with customer education. Customers need to understand, what Expedient's all about, right? I think once they can understand it and get comfortable, there's probably a perception out there. First of all, most of it's just being unaware of how Expedient or any CSP can help them. So I think it starts with that. I think it's about talking where Expedient can share their experiences on how you've helped other customers, especially within an industry. Customers love to hear about that. That's the best way that we get credibility, is to talk about how we've helped other customers that look just like them, that were in a tougher position than them, and we brought them to a better place. And I think that's where the partnership comes in, right? What I love about the partnership is that there is a sort of unselfish humility about it, right? Where you're not telling us what to do and we're not telling you what you need to do. We're working together, and my agenda is important to you and your agenda is important to me. And that's a partnership, right? And that's why we've recently really skinnied down the amount of partners that we work with. A pretty bold statement we made in the marketplace through partner rationalization, that we said, not every partner can play. And that didn't come out of nowhere. That came through experience, where we said, in order for this to work effectively and what's in the best interest for our customers, we have to find the right partners, the ones that are aligned with us. So I think it's about partnering, right? I mean, that's the best way we can go attack and go to market with our customers, is to educate them on how well we work together and what we can deliver for them.
I think the big thing there is where we actually do come together. VMware Explore will be in Vegas, back at the Venetian. Was that August 25th to the 28th? Yeah. We will be there. So if you want to meet up and learn more, you want to do a deeper dive, you can definitely reach out to us. You could also reach out to either Mike's team at Broadcom or reach out to us directly, and we will coordinate together on the back end. But we want to help clients get to that true value of VCF. And Mike, I want to thank you for your time, but we're going to have some questions coming up here right now.
Thanks, AJ.
I want to thank Mike for his time. And one of the things that happens when we put these webinars together is that folks aren't necessarily always able to join us for the Q&A. Mike was unfortunately unable to join us for the Q&A today. However, fortunately for you, we do have our own Phoebe Kim, principal technologist here at Expedient. Phoebe's here with us. And we also have Curtis Magnuszewski joining us as well from Broadcom. So he works with Mike on a regular basis, and kind of wanted to walk through some of the questions we got during the pre-registration process. I want to thank everybody who put in questions. It's really, really helpful because it helps us also make sure that we get everything in here that you want to know about. So we can jump now to the first question. Load that up here. Loading it up at the bottom. There it is. Why would I do as a service? This is a question that we get a lot. Why would I do as a service? I can buy my own servers. And I think a lot of this comes back to, is that a value to you to buy your own hardware and run it all yourself? And I always like to ask the question, do you have time to do everything you want to do? The answer is usually no. And Phoebe, I know that you've had some big feelings about this in terms of like as a service versus running it yourself, but kind of, what do you see from the as a service side, and why customers should be looking at VCF as a service versus maybe, trying to build it all themselves?
Yeah, no, of course. So I think Broadcom is definitely moving in the right direction with their product and being able to provide their customers with the full stack of everything you need in order to essentially have your own cloud, right? And to serve those needs of the businesses. However, it can be very complicated in its own way to be able to do that yourself. Maybe you don't have the right people with the right technical expertise or experience in, having this full stack. And running that on their own. Maybe you don't have the right hardware that supports all of this, and maybe making that investment can be prohibited for this customer, right, to move forward and adopt the latest technology. There are many reasons in which a business might want to look at a cloud service provider like us to be that easy button and guide them through their journey and be able to adopt a lot of these different products in the stack at their own pace. And I think that's very important because in a way, if you're doing it also yourself, you're putting a lot of pressure, right, on yourself to be able to get to like 0 to 100 all at once. But if you have somebody like us, right, a cloud service provider and a trusted advisor in a way to help you guide your way through this process and this huge transformation, essentially, right, for your infrastructure, it is a lot easier. And I know, I know, I think our like C-level executives love to put in the pitch of like the Lego blocks. I think you know what I'm talking about, where like if you're trying to do something yourself, whether it's DR or the whole infrastructure with VCF, it's like you're buying Lego, but without the manual. And you have to build it yourself and figure it out. Versus if you work with a CSP like Expedient, not only do you have the manual, but you have somebody hand holding you while you're building everything, right? To have that a more consistent result as well that's performant to what you need the infrastructure to be.
And I was actually just turning around to look to see if I still had the Lego car that my son built me, and I do. This is a perfectly fine Lego car, right? But this is what happens when you put it all together yourself. This is not a kit. This is just, hey, I took a bunch of pieces and it looks like a car. It's got 4 wheels and it had a steering wheel at one point. But this is what your environment looks like. And when you do that, it works, but every time a piece falls off, you have to put it back together, or you have to figure out how to make it better versus, as you see now, they have F1 cars and Ferraris and that sort of stuff. You could probably figure out how to build that yourself with your own pieces, but it's going to take you forever to do that. And Curtis, I kind of want to get your take on this because from the Broadcom side of it, VCF as a platform has a lot of capabilities, but as Phoebe mentioned, it's a lot in there. So I think as a service how does that make sense for Broadcom as well?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, really when you look at where we are today from a Broadcom perspective and these VCF conversions, I mean, we're way ahead of schedule where we thought we would be as far as the adoption of VCF. And really when you look at our customer base, is about realizing and consuming the full stack of that technology. So we're seeing a lot of customers and conversations that we're having along with Phoebe, talking to customers and how they utilize that full stack of technology. So partners like Expedient that have the as a service offering are able to help customers realize that value, capture that time to value, and really go to market with the full stack. And outside of that, we're talking about BYOL and as a service and why it makes sense. I mean, we've seen a number of instances where it's DR or it's another location where customers need to be able to take advantage of the licenses that they purchased, and maybe they don't have the time and the resources to stand up that infrastructure and take advantage of what they're paying for today. So partners like Expedient and our CSP community are really helping our customers take advantage of that full stack.
And I think I want to take it to the next question because there's a kind of common theme that was running through a lot of the questions here. How do independent IT consulting firms partner with Expedient and Broadcom to take advantage of this trend? And we have definitely seen a lot of questions and a lot of interest from the partner and channel community. And we want to thank our friends in the channel for that interest, because it is something that we have seen a lot of success with in the past. But because clients are our clients and prospects and Broadcom customers as well, that partner and channel community is helping to navigate things. They're seeing the wider picture. And because they're helping to navigate all of that, I think there's an interest in being deeper in partnership with the CSP community and also with Broadcom. And I guess I'll send this one to Curtis first. How does the partner in the channel work with Expedient and Broadcom on this?
Yeah, so as Mike mentioned, we've done a lot to optimize, our partner relationships. And when you look at what we've done at Broadcom, and not only with our partners, but Expedient as a partner, as our CSP community is, we're looking at what partners are going to provide the most value, the most managed services, professional services, that we can help to understand and realize that full stack of technology. So we continue to invest heavily in our partner relationships, but more importantly, not just based on size, but based on specialties and the knowledge and being able to stand up the infrastructure to utilize all the components, and really provide our end customers with that full value of the VCF stack. So we want to continue to make investments in these partners that are making investments in us at Broadcom. So as we've refined these partner relationships, we know that when you're leveraging an existing Broadcom VMware partner, you're getting someone that's a trusted advisor and someone that's going to be able to help you, make the most of the investments that you're making in us as a vendor.
I think the channel is also where we see an opportunity for some of those partners who maybe didn't make it as deep into the Broadcom partnership as well, still have access to it, right? Leaving aside some of the heartburn that comes with that, this is where you can leverage us for VCF as a service, for DR, and help your clients along the way where they may not have that direct relationship or as direct a relationship with Broadcom as they once had. And so this is a way to stay in that game because we have that level of relationship and we bring our client concerns to Broadcom leadership. We have regular cadences with Broadcom leadership, not just at the sales level, but at the product side and also at the executive level. So there is also a way for you as an independent firm to work with us on being able to help your clients at a higher level than maybe you even have access to. We can take it to the next question. How are you focused on customer success? Phoebe, I'll send this one over to you, but I think customer success is kind of our whole thing. It's our goal. It's our job to make sure that our customers are successful regardless of the technology stack. But how are we helping customers to be successful with the Broadcom partnership?
Yeah, no, of course. So I think you basically summed it up though. Like our focus is on customer success and just being with them throughout their cloud transformation journey, right? And making sure that where they're trying to go actually fulfills the business outcomes and desires. And it's fitting for their workloads and as specific applications that they might need for the success of their business. So, and on top of that, we actually have our set of quote unquote customer success, which is called Premier Care, where essentially there is a Premier Care manager that gets assigned to you as a customer. And from there, you have that first point of contact who understands you, your business, and your needs from the get-go, where you don't have to have that kind of level set every time maybe you open a support ticket or you have a conversation with somebody here, so that we have a consistent and high level of customer experience for you as somebody that obviously leverages one of our solutions. So, but overall with VCF as a service, I think that itself is aligned to customer success, right? Because we talked about like faster time to value, you being able to take advantage of all the investment that you make as soon as possible, and having that leveraging the full stack of capabilities that Broadcom offers with VCF. I mean, in a way, you could almost replace some of the other vendors actually with Broadcom VCF and actually see some operational efficiency and cost optimization right out of the gate. And that's something that we try to help the customers achieve as fast as possible.
I think one of the other big things that we do is interop testing. And obviously there's the VCF has really simplified the interop between ESX and NSX and vSAN and the ARIA suite. All of that is much, much more simplified. And one of our engineers gets to sleep a little bit better at night now. But one of the things that we also do is we have our backup as a service. We have our DR as a service, and we ensure that all of that works together. That's not a Broadcom tool, but things like backups with our partners at Cohesity and Commvault. We make sure that all of that continues to work every time we do an upgrade. This is all of the like quiet work that has to happen every time somebody wants to do an upgrade to their virtualization environment. And we do that every single day at scale. And I think that's a very, very big difference between doing it yourself and why as a service works. It's not just hey, we patch all the hosts for you. That's fine. But here's all the other stuff that we're doing on top of that. And Curtis, I guess I'll ask how Broadcom is focused on customer success, and I think it's kind of where this partnership is happening.
Yeah, so there's a couple of components of that. I mean, I think the big thing is when you look around VCF and the investments that we've made around R&D. So as a percentage of reinvestment into the business for VCF, we're higher at a percentage than our other leading competitors in the market space as far as vendors go. So we're taking that revenue, investing it back into the product to ensure that VCF is a success for our partners and for our end customers, that they're getting the components and they're getting all the features, functionality that they're looking for to help them be successful, regardless of the market segment or the vertical that they're in. So that's a big thing with the acquisition of VMware by Broadcom was Broadcom's investment into R&D and focused on the product. And when you look at VCF, we had so many different silos within VMware that we've put this together, that the focus is VCF, that it works together, and we make sure that's working well as for our cloud providers like Expedient. So customer success, is on the R&D and the investment we make into our product with VCF, but it's also related to the partnerships, as I talked about before. We're making stronger and more investments into our partners that are providing value. So when you're leveraging a VMware Broadcom partner, that these have been vetted, these are the best of the best, and they're going to provide the most value to you as a customer.
And I think as we go kind of into the last question here, I think this is where the overall, we see this overall vision across the board of the shrinking of the partnership space. I know there's been a lot of heartburn about pricing and licensing changes and those sorts of things. I think a lot of this has been done over the last 2 years to try to optimize it as much as possible and try to shove what was probably 10 years worth of change into a 6-month window. And I think it's hard to do, and it's hard to walk through that when it is so wide ranging. But I guess this is kind of where we fit in terms of this question. How do I integrate VCF into my current environment to get the most out of it? We're starting to see this question a lot more. It's not, hey, how do I make my Broadcom cheaper? Which still comes up a lot. But the bigger question that we see now is, I have VCF, or I want to use VCF, but I want to make sure that I'm getting the most out of it. We get a lot of questions about the components. I don't use vSAN, so why should I do this? And that's honestly a great question. But the biggest thing is, how do you get the most value out of it? And Phoebe, I think I'll start with you here. How do we integrate VCF into a client's environment to help them get the most out of it beyond just we stand it up?
Yeah, no, of course. So I think you touched on it a little bit. Is I believe a lot of customers today do not utilize the full stack, right? They use just bits and pieces of it. And that's, to be honest, how VMware used to go to market. Is I have all of these, flavors of cookies, and then you can choose which one is your favorite, and you just eat the ones you want. Now it's actually moving into more of an integrated solution overall, right? I mean, you could just tell from the reorganization of VMware since the Broadcom acquisition. As Curtis mentioned earlier, we used to have a different BU, different teams and engineers and product managers for every single product that you could just pick and choose from. Now it's just one. It's just one VCF BU, and they are now actually forced to work together. And I think actually something good is coming out of it, especially with VCF 9. Hey, it was released last month. And we've been actually a beta program with VCF 9 since the beginning. And I've seen the changes and the improvements essentially the product team have been making with VCF 9. And I believe that actual integrated stack is where the customer can get the most value out of it, because it really covers everything from the basic, from the bottom, your compute, storage, network. And then to that, they're just management layers, operations, logging, application dependency mapping, microsegmentation, you name it, right? It's just the full thing, in which really gives you a holistic view of your infrastructure and how you can run it as efficiently as possible. Now it does come into the how do I integrate into your current environment? That's the fun part. And that's where obviously we can help, not just in terms of, hey, here's a greenfield environment you can move your workloads to, which can be a very easy solution depending on obviously your situation at the moment. But it could also be, like I said, of helping you analyze which products will make the most sense, most maybe fastest ROI for you today, and then kind of work your way through the other products where, okay, what can you take advantage of here and how can that help your business get to the next level that you need, right? So we help you along that journey and help you consume it as you need. And I will say VCF 5. I believe it was 5.2. I forget the exact version, but there have been what do you call it, like conversion tools in a way where you can go from just vSphere, vCenter, simple deployment into like VCF that leverages SDDC Manager for your lifecycle management. And with VCF 9 as well, there are tools in which you can actually just add vCenter itself, if you'd like, to the what's called the fleet management with VCF operations and VCF automation. So there have been some architectural changes with VCF 9 where you can start consuming some of these new products or capabilities right away, even if you don't switch your entire environment to a VCF instance. So I know that's like going into way more technical details and I probably need to go, but I'm just saying there are paths and we can help you navigate those changes.
Yeah, and I think this is also something that has come a long way. I'll say this: I was one of the original VCF customers. I was on VCF 2, I think. I have seen this change. I have seen this grow over time.
Yep.
The original VCF was super prescriptive. You had to do it this way. It is much more flexible now. If you don't want to use vSAN, that's fine. You can use third-party storage, Pure Storage, NetApp, Dell EMC. All of these different storage providers still work. It's not a force to use vSAN. If you don't want to use NSX, you don't have to. Right? You can manage this the same way that you were managing it before. In fact, the original value proposition and the fact that VCF even got off the ground with all of those individual BUs was that lifecycle management. Here is a bill of materials that's prepackaged, and you click a button and it knows exactly what steps to run through and how to maintain and manage that and add in resources to the right places. There's a ton of value in managing that as a full stack, even if you're not using the individual components. And I think one of the big things that we see as a cloud service provider is not everybody using everything all at once on day one. That's been a consistent thing across our entire career, really. We had people who came in and they just started using us for DR, and then they use us for backups, then they use us for prod. And that you see this growth over time because not everything can be done all at once. Kitchen sink migrations are really, really hard. So migrating over to VCF should be started with, okay, let me get my fleet management under control. Let me get my lifecycle management under control. Okay, now I have this operations and automation tooling available. Let's start with operations. Let's make sure that all of my things are being monitored. How can I send my alerts properly and build on that from there? Because I think that's really where the overall value sits, and that's where we help along the way. I want to thank Phoebe and Curtis for jumping on for Q&A. I want to thank Mike Barry for his time earlier, answering a lot of really great questions that we had for Broadcom and talking through our overall partnership. If you would like to know more about how we're partnering with Broadcom and you want to contact us, you can go ahead and scan the QR code that's over there to submit some questions. But there's also going to be a QR code down here about cloud providers and a lot of the changes that we've seen very, very recently being dropped or removed from the program by Broadcom. When it happened, I wasn't even concerned. I knew where we were going to be. We have a very strong partnership with Broadcom and VMware, and I did not feel any type of way that we were going to be removed or anything from the program because of the value we're providing and the value that Broadcom is providing to us. Please be sure to join us next month. We have some really, really neat things to talk about, and we will see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.